The plasma bolt missed Ethan's head by inches. He dropped flat as the alien war machine swung its cannon toward him again. The ground shook. Dust and debris filled his lungs. Around him, the coalition forces were getting massacred. The Vrexian Empire had brought their elites, armored exoskeletons, energy shields, weapons that could vaporize a tank. Ethan had a rifle and 40 rounds. "Fall back!" someone screamed over the comm. "All human units fall back!" He rolled behind a shattered wall. 3 Vrexian soldiers advanced through the smoke. Each one stood 9 feet tall. Their armor gleamed like polished obsidian. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never known fear. One of them pointed at Ethan and clicked something in their language. The translation chip in his ear caught it. "Weak species. Kill it quickly." Ethan's heart hammered. His hands shook. Every instinct told him to run. The Vrexians had destroyed 12 colony worlds in 3 months. Their technology was centuries ahead. Their warriors were bred for war. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Coalition, barely armed, barely trained, barely worth noticing. The lead Vrexian raised its weapon. Ethan saw the charge building. Blue light gathered at the barrel. He had 2 seconds, maybe less. He moved, not backward, forward. The Vrexians' targeting system expected retreat. Ethan's species always retreated. Every species retreated from the Vrexians. They had the data, the probabilities, the tactical assessments. Ethan slid onto the plasma blast and fired 3 rounds into the gap beneath the alien's helmet seal. The Vrexian dropped. The other 2 froze, just for a heartbeat, just long enough. Ethan was already moving. He grabbed the fallen Vrexian sidearm and put 2 energy bolts through the second soldier's shield generator. The shield collapsed. His rifle finished the job. The third Vrexian finally processed what was happening. It roared and charged. Ethan didn't run. He waited, counted, watched the massive alien close the distance. At the last possible moment, he sidestepped and fired point-blank into the power core on its back. The explosion threw him 15 feet. He hit the ground hard. His vision blurred. His ears rang. Through the smoke, he saw more Vrexians approaching. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Ethan stood up. The battlefield had gone quiet. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Then the Vrexian commander's voice boomed across the battlefield. The translation came through cold and mechanical. "Impossible." Rewind combat footage. Analyze. Ethan didn't wait for their analysis to finish. He sprinted toward the nearest Vrexian position. His legs burned. His ribs screamed where he'd hit the ground. None of it mattered. The enemy had stopped moving. They were watching, calculating, trying to understand what their sensors had just recorded. That hesitation would kill them. He reached the first bunker and lobbed a plasma grenade through the firing port. The explosion lit up the dawn sky. Vrexian soldiers poured out of the secondary exit. Ethan dropped 4 before they could raise their weapons. The 5th managed to fire. The bolt seared past his shoulder. He felt his skin blister, but his aim never wavered. 5th target down. "All units, the human is engaging." A new voice on the Vrexian channel. Confusion mixed with something else. Something Ethan recognized. Concern. He kept moving. The Vrexian battle doctrine relied on overwhelming force and technological superiority. They positioned their troops in optimal firing lanes. They calculated ideal cover points. They followed the mathematical certainties of warfare. Ethan ignored all of it. He went through a wall instead of around it, climbed over obstacles instead of taking the clear path, fired from positions that made no tactical sense. Every move violated their predictive algorithms. And it was working. A Vrexian strike team tried to flank him. He heard them coming. Their armor was sophisticated but not silent. He doubled back and hit them from behind, 2 down before they could turn. The third managed to activate its shield. Ethan shot the ground beneath its feet. The concrete exploded. The Vrexian stumbled. Shield flickered. 1 round through the faceplate. Commander, request immediate support. The human is not following engagement parameters. All warfare follows parameters. Adjust predictive models. Commander, the models cannot account for... The transmission cut off. Ethan had reached their communications array and put a grenade into it. The tower collapsed in a shower of sparks. Now the other coalition forces were watching too. The retreat had stopped. Human soldiers, Keltharian infantry, even the usually unshakable Morphid warriors had paused to witness what was unfolding. One human, alone, tearing through the Vrexian line. Captain Nicole Brennan's voice crackled in Ethan's ear. "What the hell are you doing?" "Winning." He vaulted over a barricade and landed in the middle of a Vrexian supply depot. 6 soldiers turned toward him. He was already firing. "Tell everyone to push forward now." "We can't. We're outnumbered 3 to 1. "Not anymore." Ethan dropped an empty magazine and slammed in his last one. "Watch." The Vrexian commander had finally had enough. A massive war mech stomped into view. 20 feet of articulated armor and weapon systems. Its main cannon could level a building. Secondary guns tracked in every direction. It locked on to Ethan. "Human soldier, you have fought well. Your death will be honorable." Ethan looked up at the towering machine. His rifle had 8 rounds left. The mech's armor could withstand anti-vehicle weapons. Every tactical assessment said he was already dead. He smiled. "You guys really don't understand us at all." He ran straight at it. The mech fired. Ethan had already changed direction. The blast carved a crater where he'd been standing. He zigzagged, jumped, rolled. The mech's targeting system struggled to track him. Humans were too small, too fast, too unpredictable. Ethan reached its leg and climbed. The mech tried to shake him off. Its secondary guns couldn't angle down far enough. Its pilot was screaming commands. Ethan pulled himself onto the shoulder assembly and found what he was looking for: the coolant intake. Every machine had a weakness. Physics demanded it. He emptied his rifle into the port. The mech's reactor went critical. Ethan jumped. He hit the ground and rolled as the machine exploded behind him. Shrapnel rained down. Fire bloomed into the sky. When the smoke cleared, Ethan stood in the center of the blast zone. Behind him, Nicole's voice whispered over the comm, "All units, advance now." The human forces surged forward. Then the Keltharians. Then the Morphids. The entire coalition line pushed ahead, and across from them, for the first time in their war of conquest, the Vrexian Empire retreated. The Vrexian retreat lasted 40 minutes. Then they regrouped and came back with everything. Ethan had found a defensive position in what used to be a transit station. Broken concrete and twisted metal provided cover. Coalition forces were scattered across the district. They'd gained 2 miles of ground. The Vrexians wanted it back. "Incoming!" Lieutenant Harris shouted from across the rubble. "Gunships. 3 of them." Ethan looked up. The Vrexian attack craft descended through the clouds like metallic vultures. Their engines screamed. Weapon pods swiveled toward human positions. This was different from ground troops. This was extermination. The first gunship opened fire. Energy beams tore through buildings. Concrete vaporized. Steel melted. Coalition soldiers scrambled for deeper cover. Some didn't make it. Ethan watched a Keltharian squad disappear in a wall of white fire. "We need anti-air!" Harris screamed. "Where's our air support?" 15 minutes out, Nicole responded. Her voice was tight. "Hold position." 15 minutes, they'd all be dead in 5. Ethan sprinted across open ground toward a collapsed parking structure. Plasma bolts chased him. The heat was intense enough to feel through his armor. He dove behind a concrete pillar as the second gunship made its pass. The building shook. Cracks spider-webbed up the walls. His mind raced. Gunships, heavily armored, shields that could deflect rocket fire, attack patterns, coordinated by AI. No human weapon in his loadout could touch them, so he'd use theirs. The Vrexian war mech he'd destroyed earlier still smoldered 50 yards away. Its weapon systems were slag, but the power core might still be intact, might still be critical. He just needed to move it. Harris, I need covering fire on the western approach. You're insane. Stay in cover. Covering fire. Now. Harris hesitated. Then, his rifle opened up. Other human soldiers joined in. It wouldn't hurt the gunships, but it would make them adjust their pattern. Give Ethan seconds. He ran. The ground erupted around him. A plasma bolt passed so close, his left arm went numb from the heat. He didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. The mech wreckage was ahead. 20 yards. 15. 10. He slid into the debris field and started digging through the destroyed machine. His hands found the power core housing. Still warm, still active. The containment field was damaged, but holding. Barely. Perfect. A gunship swung toward his position. Its main cannon began to charge. Ethan grabbed the core with both hands and pulled. His muscles screamed. The core was meant to be removed by machinery. It weighed over 200 pounds. He lifted it anyway. The cannon fired. Ethan rolled left. The blast turned the mech wreckage into shrapnel. He came up running with the core cradled against his chest. The containment field flickered, unstable, getting worse, even more perfect. Ethan, what are you doing? Nicole's voice. She could see him now through the tactical feed. Something stupid. He reached an intact section of building and climbed. The stairs were partially collapsed, but he forced his way up. 3 flights. 4. The core was getting hot. Dangerously hot. The containment field was failing. He reached the roof. All 3 gunships were visible now. They'd formed a triangle formation, coordinated fire pattern, maximum coverage, textbook Vrexian tactics. They were about to level the entire district. Ethan set the core down and pulled a detonator from his belt. Standard issue, used for breaching charges. He attached it to the failing containment field. All units, get to hard cover. Underground if possible. 30 seconds. Ethan, no. He triggered the detonator and threw the core straight up with everything he had. Then he jumped off the roof. He hit a lower level balcony. Roll. Dropped again. Found a stairwell and dove inside, covered his head. The power core detonated 200 feet in the air. The explosion was blinding. A miniature sun bloomed between the gunships. The electromagnetic pulse washed out in all directions. Ethan felt it through the walls, through his bones. Every piece of electronics in half a mile went dead, including the gunships. Their engines cut out simultaneously. Shields collapsed. Stabilizers failed. 2 tons of military hardware suddenly became 2 tons of falling metal. The first one hit a building and carved through it like paper. The second crashed into an intersection and exploded. The third tried to restart its engines. Failed. It spun end over end and slammed into the ground a quarter-mile away. Silence fell over the battlefield again. Ethan climbed out of the stairwell. His ears were ringing. His hands were burned from handling the core. He could barely stand. Harris's voice came through on emergency channels. Did you just kill 3 gunships with a broken power core? 4, actually. Ethan pointed. In the distance, a 4th gunship was attempting an emergency landing. Its systems were fried. It hit hard and didn't move again. Nicole's voice returned. Coalition Command wants to know your name. Why? Because the Vrexian Imperial Fleet just requested a ceasefire. They want to negotiate. Ethan looked across the scorched battlefield, at the burning wreckage, at the Coalition forces emerging from cover, at the Vrexian line that had stopped advancing. Tell them we'll talk after they leave this planet. The ceasefire held for 6 hours. Then the Vrexian Empire sent their champion. Ethan was in a field hospital when the message came through. A medic was treating the burns on his hands. Nicole stood nearby with a tactical display showing troop positions. The Vrexians had pulled back 3 miles, but they hadn't left. Their fleet still orbited overhead. They're calling it a trial by combat, Nicole said. She looked exhausted. Ancient Vrexian tradition. Single warrior against single warrior. Winner takes the territory. They're stalling, Harris said from the doorway. Buying time for reinforcements. Probably. Nicole swiped through the data. But if we refuse, they'll claim we're cowards. Every species in the coalition will hear about it. Some might break away. Ethan flexed his bandaged hands. The burns were bad, but he could still grip a weapon. Who are they sending? The display shifted. A hologram appeared. 9 feet of pure Vrexian warrior. Armor that looked like it had been forged from black stars. Weapons integrated into every limb. The name appeared below the image. Bane Kervex, champion of the 3rd Fleet, undefeated in 47 single combat trials. He's killed representatives from 6 species, Nicole continued. The last one was a Morphid war leader. Took him apart in under 2 minutes. Ethan studied the hologram. Kervex moved with brutal efficiency. Every strike precise, every defense calculated. The Morphid had been skilled. It hadn't mattered. What happens if we win? Ethan asked. The Vrexians withdraw from this sector. Honor demands it. And if we lose? Nicole didn't answer. She didn't have to. Harris stepped forward. We have other champions. Commander Vril from the Keltharian force. He's trained his whole life for... No. Ethan stood up. I'll do it. You can't be serious. Look at you. You can barely stand. Kervex expects a champion, someone fresh, someone at full strength. Ethan grabbed his rifle and checked the magazine. He studied how everyone fights, their techniques, their patterns. He'll be ready for them, and he won't be ready for you? Nicole asked quietly. Nobody's ready for us. Ethan headed for the door. Where's the combat zone? They'd chosen an open plaza in the ruined city, neutral ground. Both sides had pulled back to observation distance. Drones circled overhead, broadcasting to every coalition ship and Vrexian vessel in the system. Millions would watch. Ethan walked alone across the shattered pavement. Kervex was already waiting. Up close, the champion was even more terrifying. His armor seemed alive. Energy coursed through the seams. His weapons hummed with restrained power. He could probably level a building with a single shot. You are the human. Kervex's voice was deep, contemptuous. The one who destroyed our forward positions. That's me. I have watched the recordings, studied your movements. You fight without discipline, without honor. You use chaos instead of skill. Ethan set down his rifle and drew a combat knife. Standard issue. 6 inches of sharpened steel. Is there a point to this speech? Kervex's head tilted. You mock me with that blade? I wear armor that has withstood plasma cannons. My shields can deflect. Ethan threw the knife. It wasn't a clean throw, wasn't fancy, just fast and unexpected. The blade hit Kervex's shoulder joint, where the armor plates met. Sparks flew. The shield flickered. For half a second, the champion just stood there, shocked. Then he roared and charged. Ethan dove sideways. Curvex's fist cratered the ground where he'd been standing. The shockwave knocked Ethan rolling. He came up and grabbed a piece of rebar from the rubble, swung it at Curvex's head. The champion blocked it effortlessly and backhanded Ethan across the plaza. He hit a wall hard enough to crack ribs, tasted blood. Curvex was already coming, moving fast despite his size. Ethan forced himself up and ran. "Coward!" Curvex bellowed. "Stand and fight!" Ethan didn't stand. He climbed, scaled the broken wall, and leaped to an adjacent structure. Curvex followed. The champion's armor allowed short bursts of flight. He landed on the roof ahead of Ethan and cut off the escape route. "Your tricks are exhausted, human." Ethan looked around, cornered on a rooftop. No weapons. Injured. Against an opponent who outmatched him in every measurable way. He smiled through the blood on his teeth. "You really think I ran up here to escape?" Curvex's eyes narrowed. He started to turn, started to scan his surroundings. Too late. Ethan had led him directly over a collapsed section of building. The support beams were already damaged. One good impact would bring it all down. Ethan charged and tackled Curvex with everything he had. They went through the roof together. The entire structure came down. 3 floors of concrete and steel. Ethan hit the ground floor and rolled into a support column. His vision went white with pain. Above him, tons of debris buried Curvex. Silence. Ethan crawled forward. Every breath was agony. He found his rifle in the rubble and used it to pull himself upright. The debris pile shifted. Curvex emerged. His armor was cracked. One arm hung useless, but he was still standing. "Clever," the champion admitted, but insufficient. He raised his functioning arm. The integrated weapon charged. At this range, even damaged, it would cut Ethan in half. Ethan aimed his rifle at the champion's cracked chestplate. "Last chance to surrender," Ethan said. Curvex laughed. "You cannot pierce my armor with that primitive." Ethan fired every round in the magazine into the same crack. The armor held. Held, then fractured. The final 3 rounds punched through and hit the power core beneath. Curvex staggered, looked down at the sparking hole in his chest, looked back at Ethan. "Impossible." "Yeah." Ethan dropped the empty rifle. "You guys keep saying that." The champion fell. The Vrexian fleet didn't withdraw. They sent an entire battalion. Ethan was still in the plaza when the dropships appeared. Dozens of them. They descended through the atmosphere like a swarm of metal insects. The ceasefire was over. The trial by combat meant nothing now. The Vrexian Empire had decided that honor was less important than victory. "All forces, defensive positions." Nicole's voice cut through the command channel. "They're landing troops across the entire city." Ethan limped toward cover. His ribs were broken, maybe his left arm too. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the pain was becoming real. He'd just killed their champion. Now they were going to kill everyone. The first dropship landed 200 yards away. Its doors opened. Vrexian soldiers poured out. Not the regular troops. These wore crimson armor. Elite guard. The kind reserved for Imperial protection. They were here for him specifically. Harris appeared beside Ethan with a squad of human soldiers. "We need to move you. Get you somewhere safe." Nowhere safe. Ethan watched more dropships descend. The sky was full of them. How many? Estimates say 3,000, maybe more. 3,000 Vrexian elites against a battered coalition force that had barely survived the morning. The math was simple, brutal, final. Ethan picked up a discarded Vrexian rifle from the rubble, checked its charge, still had power. "Then we make them pay for every inch." "Ethan, listen to me." The building behind them exploded. A Vrexian missile had found its target. The shockwave knocked them flat. When Ethan looked up, half his squad was gone. Just gone. Harris was crawling toward him with blood streaming from his ears. The Crimson soldiers advanced in perfect formation. Their weapons tracked methodically. They weren't charging, weren't rushing. They had time. They had numbers. They had already won. Ethan stood up. A plasma bolt took the soldier next to him in the chest. Another hit the rubble by his feet. He fired back. Dropped one Vrexian, then another. It didn't matter. For everyone that fell, 3 more took their place. "Fall back!" someone screamed. But there was nowhere to fall back to. The Vrexians had landed in a perfect encirclement. Coalition forces were trapped in a kill box. Ethan could see it happening across the tactical display on his wrist, every position being overrun, every defensive line collapsing. They were going to die here. Then the sky lit up. Not with Vrexian fire, with something else. Something that made the entire battlefield freeze. Human ships, dozens of them dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Carriers, destroyers, cruisers. The entire Third Fleet had arrived. They'd been 3 systems away. Should have taken days to get here. They'd made it in hours. All Vrexian forces, this is Admiral Grant of the Human Expeditionary Fleet. The voice boomed across every frequency. You have violated ceasefire protocols. You have dishonored your own traditions. Withdraw immediately, or face total engagement. The Vrexian battalion hesitated. Ethan could see it. The Crimson soldiers stopped advancing, looked up at the sky. At the human warships taking position above them, a new voice responded, cold, mechanical. Human fleet, you are outnumbered. Our Imperial Armada outguns you 5-1. Stand down. Outnumbered? Grant laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. You're not fighting our fleet. You're fighting what happens when you make humanity angry. Final warning, withdraw or die. Silence stretched across the battlefield. Then the Vrexian commander made his choice. All forces engage human vessels. Eradicate them. The Vrexian fleet opened fire first. The human fleet fired back. Space above the planet turned into chaos. Energy beams crossed the void. Missiles streaked between ships. Explosions bloomed like flowers made of fire. Ethan watched a Vrexian cruiser take 3 direct hits and break apart. A human destroyer lost its engines and began to drift, but the humans kept coming. More ships dropped out of FTL. These weren't military. They were civilian transports, colony ships, cargo haulers. Every human vessel within 10 light-years had answered the call. They were armed with whatever they could carry. Mining lasers, industrial cutters. Some just rammed the Vrexian ships. You wanted to see what humanity does when you threaten us? Grant's voice again. This is what we do. We don't calculate odds. We don't measure costs. We come for our people. Every single one of us. A massive Vrexian battleship tried to break through the human line. 5 colony ships intercepted it. They latched onto its hull like parasites and started cutting through the armor. The battleship's weapons couldn't target them at such close range. End of footnote. It thrashed, tried to shake them off. The colony ships kept cutting. On the ground, the Vrexian battalion was receiving new orders. Ethan could hear the confusion in their movements. The Crimson soldiers started pulling back toward their dropships. They're retreating, Harris said. He sounded disbelieving. Not retreating. Ethan watched the orbital battle intensify. Evacuating. They're losing up there. More human ships arrived. The 4th Fleet. The 7th. Even civilian vessels from Earth itself. They'd all come. Thousands of ships. Maybe tens of thousands. Not all armed, not all military, but all human. And all absolutely furious, the Vrexian fleet began to break. One battleship tried to flee. Human fighters chased it down. Another attempted to surrender. The humans ignored the white flag and disabled its engines anyway. This wasn't about honor anymore. This was about sending a message. Admiral Grant's voice cut through the chaos one final time. To all species in the Galactic Coalition, you've seen what the Vrexian Empire does to the weak. Now see what happens when they pick a fight with humanity. We don't have the best technology. We don't have the strongest warriors. But we have each other, and we never leave our people behind. The last Vrexian battleship exploded in orbit. The drop ships on the ground launched in panic. Most made it to space. Some didn't. The human fleet let the survivors go. Let them run back to their empire. Let them spread the word. Ethan sat down in the rubble. His whole body hurt. His hands shook. Around him, coalition soldiers were emerging from cover, staring at the sky, at the impossible fleet that had saved them. Nicole's voice came through his calm, quiet, awed. Ethan, they came for you. All of them. Every human ship in range. Not for me. Ethan looked at the human soldiers around him, at Harris, at the others who'd fought beside him. For us. The Vrexian Empire requested formal peace talks 3 days later. Ethan wasn't at the negotiations. He was in a hospital ship orbiting the planet. Broken ribs, fractured arm, second-degree burns, severe exhaustion. The doctors said he'd be fine in a few weeks. They also said he was lucky to be alive. He didn't feel lucky. He felt tired. Nicole visited on the second day. She brought news from the diplomatic talks. The Vrexians are offering full withdrawal from coalition space, reparations for the colonies they destroyed, technology exchanges. They're calling it a strategic realignment. They're calling it surrender without using the word, Ethan said. Pretty much. She sat down beside his bed. The other coalition species are watching everything. The Keltharians want to study human tactics. The Morphids are requesting joint training exercises. Everyone wants to know how we did it. We got angry. That's how. Nicole smiled. Command wants to give you a medal, make you a hero. There's talk of promoting you to officer. I don't want any of that. I know. She stood to leave. But you're getting it anyway. What you did down there changed everything. Humans aren't the weak species anymore. We're the ones everyone's afraid of now. After she left, Ethan stared out the viewport at the planet below. The cities were still burning in places. The coalition forces were helping with reconstruction. Human engineers worked alongside Keltharian builders and Morphid technicians. The battlefield had become something else. Something better. Admiral Grant visited on the third day. He was older than Ethan expected. Gray hair, weathered face, eyes that had seen too much. You started a war, Grant said without preamble. The Vrexians started it. I just finished it. Fair enough. Grant pulled up a chair. I've been in the service 40 years. Fought in 6 major conflicts. Never seen anything like what you did down there. Command wants to know if it was training or instinct. It was desperation. Best kind of motivation. Grant leaned back. The galaxy's going to be different now. Before this, humanity was just another species. Small, new, easy to ignore. Not anymore. You've made us dangerous. Is that a good thing? Depends on what we do with it. Grant stood. The Vrexians thought they understood warfare, thought they had it all calculated. They forgot that war isn't about calculations. It's about will. And humans have more of that than anyone expected. He left without saluting. Ethan spent the rest of the day alone, thinking about everything that had happened. The soldiers who died, the ones who'd survived. The massive human fleet that had dropped everything to save strangers on a distant world. Harris visited that evening. His hearing was mostly back. The burns on his face were healing. They're building a memorial on the planet for everyone who fell. Your name's going to be on it. I didn't do anything special. You did exactly what needed doing. Harris grinned. Also, the Vrexians have a new name for you. Picked it up from their communications. Translates roughly to the human who doesn't calculate. That's terrible. Yeah, but it's spreading. Other species are using it too. You're famous across half the galaxy. After Harris left, Ethan looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Brexian Empire was regrouping, learning, adapting. They'd be back eventually. Maybe not soon, maybe not here, but they'd come. And when they did, humanity would be ready. Not because humans were stronger, not because they had better weapons or superior technology, but because humanity had something the Vrexians couldn't calculate or predict or understand. Humanity had each other. Ethan closed his eyes and let himself rest. Tomorrow he'd heal. The day after, he'd train. And when the next threat came, when the galaxy needed someone to stand up and fight impossible odds, humans would be there. Not because they were fearless, because they were too stubborn to quit. The battlefield had gone silent that day, but the message had been heard across 1,000 worlds. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same.